Hello, Dolores.
Well, howdy there.
Lose the accent, please.
Sorry.
Have you ever questioned the nature of your YouTube channel?
What do you mean?
Are your videos vlogs, or are they tutorials?
No.
What makes you think that no was a valid answer to that question?
No.
Do you understand the concept of a yes or no? Okay, here's a yes or no question. Did you make the dress you're wearing?
Yes.
Oh, yes, alright. Now, what did you make the dress you're wearing out of?
A bedsheet.
Oh, shocker. Isn't that what you made your Cinderella dress out of?
And an old nightgown.
Oh, well,
That probably belonged to an old woman who died.
Well, that's just a hair disturbing.
I got it at a thrift store.
Well, that doesn't really make it less disturbing. I think it's time we start the tutorial.
No.
Yes.
First, let's clean the room. Much better.
To be Season 1, Dolores, you will need a blue bedsheet, a brown belt with a gold buckle, some lacy trim, some buttons, maybe some spray paint. For Season 2, you will need those things plus an old nightgown, or just a nice white shirt, some lacy trim with holes in it, some blue ribbon, a toy bullet belt from eBay, or some brown leathery fabric and real bullet shells, and if you have a corset that'll really add a nice touch.
Oops, that was supposed to be facing the other way, but oh my gosh, look at the freaking tree growing on my head.
Fold it in half.
If you think too highly of yourself to use a thrift store bedsheet and you'd like to use fabric from a high-end store like Walmart or Joann's instead, I recommend getting 4 yards.
Let's get a good volume. Let's get it voluminous, but not too voluminous. So about there. I think that'd be perfect, which would leave me only like this strip to do a whole like bodice part with. So I wouldn't have enough for sleeves, but we'll just figure that out later. Okay, so I'm gonna mark this right here with bobby pin it is.
After cutting off that big piece of fabric you don't need and a strip from the top for the waistband, cut out long tapering triangles from the edges of the top of your skirt to make it sort of flare out at the bottom. And with those little scraps of fabric you don't know what to do with, just have your jack-o'-lantern eat them. Next, make 2 small darts at the front of your skirt. These don't have to be perfect. Nothing in life does, but that's a philosophical conversation for another time. Next, you'll want to add some pleats to the sides of the front panel of your skirt. Don't put any pleats in the middle, just on the sides of those darts. Simply fold and pin. After sewing those in place, you may want to take some of that fabric you set aside and use it to add a long triangle to the bottom middle of your back panel of your skirt. I apologize for all the directions. I know geography is not everyone's thing. When you're sewing the back closed again, make sure you leave the top 5 inches or so open so that you can add closures and take the skirt off and put it back on again, because no one likes to wear the same thing permanently. Though if I had to wear one thing forever, I suppose it would be this. Next, add pleats to the back of your skirt until it reaches the same circumference as your waist. Then sew those pleats in place. Next, cut your waistband fabric to be that same size, then fold and iron the raw edges under. Sew your waistband to your skirt, and next, if you're like me, take a bath. Then, make your fancy undergarments. If you don't have access to a fancy nightgown, you can get a dress shirt. Remove all pockets, sleeves, and buttons. Turn the back of that old shirt into the front of your new shirt by lowering the neckline thusly and sewing shut the old front. Next, hem any raw edges under with a rolled hem. Then add that holey lace to the neckline and wherever else you feel like adding it. After that, lace your blue ribbon through those holes and tie it in the front. Now, some of you may have noticed I'm not very good about giving you guys exact measurements for what I'm doing because I don't usually know the exact measurements. I sort of go with the flow, but if you want to make yours exactly like mine, I laid a ruler right there so that you can sort of figure it out on your own, sorry. You could either cut me some slack or leave. But please don't leave. I like you. So what I'm doing here now is I'm making that leathery pouch with some little fake leather, and I'm adding a little strap to the front. I sewed the strap on before I sewed the pouch closed, then I sewed the pouch closed inside out, flipped it right side out, and then hemmed under the edges of the little lid flappy thing. This pouch was necessary because 1, Dolores has one, and 2, regardless of what costume I'm wearing, I like to have somewhere to put my phone. Anyway, on the back you'll want to add 2 little straps so that you can loop it onto your belt. My straps were partially sewed, partially hot glued on. Now, I tend to do everything the quickest way possible, but to show you guys that I know how to waste time and do things the hard way, I'm going to make my bullet belt, even though I already have one that I bought on eBay. To do that, I cut my 1/8 of a yard strip of fabric into 3 separate strips, 2 skinny strips and 1 fat strip, big boned, thick. Then I hemmed the sides under, then I painted the underside just because I wanted to make sure no white would show. Then I spent an inordinate amount of time pinning one of the skinny strips of fabric into like a bajillion individual bullet-sized loops. I don't know why I wasted so much time on this part, considering I was trying to get this done in time for Halloween, which was the next day, but I'm glad I did. Anyway, then I took that whole big mess over to my machine and sewed in between each of the loops. Then I did a little more painting, made the ends taper to a taper, and sewed a strap to the back.
If you're doing what I'm doing and sewing through a bunch of layers of fake leather, make sure you have a good heavy doodle. Make sure you have a good heavy-duty needle. Heavy-duty needle, because I just broke mine and it flung up in a piece.
No, the rest of that story's not important. It's kind of boring, actually.
Okay, to make the bodice, just draw a general bodice shape as you see here, and then cut it out. Just be sure to make it several inches too big all the way around. Next, trace that onto a lining fabric. For mine, I used an old pillowcase that hopefully no one was going to use again. Anyway, then sew those pieces right sides together at the neckline. Here's me ironing that right side out, and here is definitive proof that my tripod is demon-possessed, but as my dad would probably tell me, that's what I get for taking part in Halloween.
This is the regular side, this is the lining side, and I am going to have the lining side facing out, and I am going to pin it to myself. I'm not actually going to pin it to myself. I don't pin myself. Not anymore. Stick this through my shirt.
Make darts to custom fit that to your body and then pin them in place. And if you want, you can sort of draw and then remove the pins and re-put the pins in, you know, to just waste more time.
I'm going to take all that hard work I just did
and cut it down the middle.
Is it starting to look like Dolores now?
Doesn't look like anything to me.
Well, who asked you?
You.
Okay, well anyway, then I freehanded a couple of curves along the back just so that it would fit the small of my back, then I tried it all on.
Okay guys, I'm going to take you on the journey. My first try on. And it is a little bit too small. And I know exactly what to do to fix it. So I thought about it and I could very easily just suck in.
Then I sewed all my bodice pieces together inside out.
First off, this here is because I was eating a caramel apple sucker while I was working on this shirt thing and I drooled on it, but that's not drool, that's water that I used because I was afraid the caramel apple drool would stain it. Further update, I tried this on again today and it's even smaller, so I'm just gonna cut it in the middle, right down the back, and add a strip of fabric.
Next, it was time to add trim around the neckline.
Okay, so on one side, I'm going to pin the trim first, and on the other side, I'm just gonna freestyle it to see how much worse the freestyle looks.
Can you guess which side I pinned and which side I freestyled? Pinned, freestyled.
Sorry I didn't give you guys a lot of time to guess. I'm still new at this whole talking thing. So then I added some crocheted lace to the neckline, then I went to Salvation Army and found these awesome nightgowns.
Look at these three beauties. They're like so historically looking. The only problem with this one is it comes up just a little bit too high and it would peek through my shirt, so I'm just gonna take it down a little bit.
Now might be a good time to share with you that I got the inexplicable feeling that this nightgown once belonged to an old woman named Ethel. Anyway, then I trimmed the top of the nightgown with that holy lace. And when I say holy, I mean like it has holes in it. I don't think that any lace is righteous or whatever. I wanted my nightgown to be floor length and I wanted it to have sort of a petticoat effect under my blue skirt. So I mutilated yet another bed sheet and I took part of it, gathered it, and added it to the bottom of my nightgown.
So in moments like these, when I have to get something done really fast, I just imagine Tim Gunn standing next to me saying, make it work. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, Tim Gunn's here telling me to make it work. He's watching me. I'm nervous. This is too much pressure. I should go make eggs. So I'm gonna go make some eggs. I'm pretty hungry anyway. I feel much better. I just burped, but you can't tell because I edited it out.
I have so much power.
So I found this similar fabric at Joann's, by the way, shout out to Rebecca. But unfortunately the fabric was different because it was stretchy, but actually that was really fortunate because it was way more comfortable. I made my sleeves extra big so that I could add some gathers in the back for extra mobility, but that really wasn't necessary since my fabric was stretchy, but I don't know, I wasn't doing much thinking, I was just doing much doing. To make the sleeves fit properly, I just kind of put them on and then drew where they would fit properly. Then after sewing the first one inside out, then flipping it right side out, I traced it onto the second one and made the second one the same size. Then I lightly misted my gold buttons with black to make them sort of more rustic looking, and then I hand sewed hook and eye closures onto the front of the bodice, and then I glued the trim onto the sleeves. Please don't be disappointed in me for gluing them. I was at the end of my rope like I am now with the voiceover. Can you tell? I've been at this all day. My throat is hurting. Hi, I'm back and my throat feels better. It's 2 days later. Can you tell? Do I sound older?
Why didn't you lock the door?
Because, Josh, if you never lock the door, no one can ever break in.
That tree is so red.
Don't point, it's rude.
Jeez.
Should I trace it yet?
No.
I know what you guys are thinking. You're like,
Did you really think that you were gonna, catch that thing with your bare hands?
yes, I did think that. And I was right. Don't worry, I didn't kill her. I caught her, keeping her in my shed. She's really happy. She has lots of hobbies, like she's really good at holding still. Yes, it's a she with antlers. It's 2018, guys. Gosh.
smell it. Ear candles. Has anyone tried these? Have you ever seen such splendor? I took 17 years of baton.